My dear brothers and sisters, I want to thank God that my recent video on preparing for the new normal has blessed many people. As a friend of Indonesia, I'm thankful that I can serve my Indonesian brothers and sisters with some useful medical information at a time like this where there's so much uncertainty and fear. Now, several listeners have requested that I speak on the topic of herd immunity. Recently, there has been a lot of articles, a lot of statements by politicians that there could be a solution through herd immunity. Now, there's a lot of frustration among people that why is it our politicians, our leaders have no solution for this problem? You know, nothing frustrates people more than the fact that we have leaders who can't give us solutions. And so at a time like this, when there's a demand for solutions, people just will give some solution, whether it is a good solution or whether it is a scientific solution. That is not the point. They just want to say that, hey, we are thinking and these are some possibilities. People like to give hope. And so one of the things that's being promoted as a possible solution for the coronavirus situation is herd immunity. Now, of course, most people have no idea what it is. So let's try to explain what is herd immunity. Now, the word herd is an English word to describe a large gathering of animals of the same kind. That's the original meaning of the word herd. For example, we would say in English, a herd of cows. That means this whole group, this whole hundreds or thousands of animals are all one kind, cows, right? If they mix, we don't call it a herd, right? One kind. So herd immunity simply means that there's lots of people with one identity, one thing about them that is common. And the common thing is they all have immunity to coronavirus. So the word herd immunity simply means a whole group of people having all of them immunity to coronavirus. Now, it's not a very nice term to use. It sounds like we are animals. So some people prefer to use the term community immunity. In other words, people, not animals, okay? But never mind, we'll just stick to the word herd immunity because that's a popular word. Now, is that a possible solution? Yes, in principle, yes, it is. Take, for example, let's say everybody in Singapore has immunity to coronavirus. Okay, let's just say. Let's say all of us got the infection. After the infection, most of us survived. And after we survived, our bodies now have produced antibodies to the coronavirus. So we don't fear coronavirus anymore, right? In other words, if Singapore immigration says, let's open our country to foreigners coming in from anywhere, don't worry. We can let them in from countries full of coronavirus. We don't worry, because if they come into Singapore, they bring the virus, we don't worry. We all already have immunity because we already have the infection. We survive. Those of us who survive now have antibodies. So who cares? Come on in. No more fear already of coronavirus, right? So in principle, it is a possibility, right? Now, in practical terms, it is a reality. There are instances in medicine where herd immunity has already taken place. Let me give you examples of diseases that used to terrify us before. Measles, mumps, polio, smallpox. All these used to kill lots of people. Today, basically, most of these diseases, no more fear because there is immunity against it. In fact, for things like polio, it's eradicated. It doesn't exist. This generation, there is no more polio, right? It disappeared because of herd immunity, and then herd immunity caused it, the disease. Nobody could pass it anymore. Everybody got it, and slowly the virus has nowhere to survive, because any virus enters you, you have the antibodies, you kill the virus, and everybody killed all the viruses, so no more smallpox virus, no more polio virus, right? But let's take measles. It's something easier for you and me to understand. When I was a young doctor in Singapore, it was very common for us to have to deal with measles outbreaks. Suddenly we see in the school, a lot of children get measles, okay? And then they have to close the school, and then some of the kids will get blind, some will get deaf, some will get brain damage, some will die, right? Every now and then there was an outbreak here in this school, outbreak in that school. But in 1985 in Singapore, the government passed a law that every child between the ages of 1 and 2 years old must get measles vaccination, right? So everybody got the vaccination, all the kids got immunity, right? Now, of course, you can't say all got immunity, because sometimes kids from other countries come to Singapore. They don't have the vaccination, they bring measles, but we don't worry, because all the kids in Singapore already have immunity, right? So there was herd immunity. Now, in 1985, when that was passed, today we do not see any more measles outbreaks. Nobody fears measles anymore. As long as roughly 95% of all children in Singapore get vaccinated, 95%. That's a nice figure, right? Someone else from outside brings the measles into Singapore, we don't worry. Because maybe just one kid, all right? Maybe a few kids could get it. But when they get the virus, because they hadn't got the vaccine yet, maybe they came from another country, but when they get the measles, they can pass it to nobody, because all the rest already have immunity. So the virus goes to the air and nobody gets it, and then after a while the virus ceases. Okay? So in measles, if 95% of all children have vaccination, then no more problem. No more fear of measles. Okay? So today, as a younger doctors have no idea about measles. They don't see it anymore. It doesn't exist. All right? So herd immunity has worked, for example, in Singapore for measles. Okay? Now, they say that coronavirus, you need about 70% of all people to have immunity before it is safe for the country. In other words, 70% must get antibodies to coronavirus, and then the fear of coronavirus spreading anymore will stop. Because if somebody came from another country and brought it, most times he brought it, he talks to Singaporeans, all the Singaporeans already have immunity, and the few that don't have immunity, It's okay, they get it, but when they can't pass it to anybody else because the rest have immunity. So even if he gets it, he just gets it for himself. He can't pass it to others because the others have immunity. So if 70% of Singaporeans have antibodies to coronavirus, then we Singaporeans don't need to fear about coronavirus spreading. You might get it, but you can't pass it to anyone because the rest are protected by their immunity. Okay, so that's, if we have 70% of Singaporeans with antibodies to coronavirus, we can say herd immunity in Singapore protects us from the fear of coronavirus outbreaks in Singapore. Okay? The problem is, how do we get 70% of Singaporeans to have the antibodies? There's no vaccine. You see, for measles, we can have every kid just get vaccine, safe. Vaccination gives you immunity without the danger of the disease. But coronavirus now, there is no vaccination. So the only way to get the antibodies is to get the infection. And when you get the infection, there is one big problem. There will be a lot of deaths, right? So the only way to get herd immunity now, when people say the solution is herd immunity, are you willing to see a lot of people die? Especially older people dying. Are you willing to see that? Right? That means a lot of your fathers, a lot of your grandparents will die. Now that's very difficult to see our parents die. Secondly, if we allow, all right, no PS baby, everybody just get infection so that soon all Indonesians will have the infection, no more worry after that. We have herd immunity, no more worry. But in the process, all the old people, many old people will die. Secondly, hospitals in that time will be overwhelmed. Everybody's getting sick. Hospitals have no more beds left for other sicknesses. You know, people are getting sick all the time from other things, right? They need operations, they need to go to hospital to give birth to babies, a lot of things. But if you allow just no PS baby, everybody gets sick, never mind, we will develop herd immunity. What happens? The hospitals have so many patients, other people with other sicknesses can't go in because we are all taking care of coronavirus patients. Secondly, doctors and nurses will get infected so badly, and they are our heroes in this fight. They are the frontline troops, soldiers, and they will get infected because there is so many cases. There's no time to change your protective shields and your protective mask, no time to wash your hands properly, and doctors and nurses will die. And one generation of doctors and nurses may be lost. Can we afford that? You know, it takes so many years to train a good nurse, a good doctor. They are our hope, and you want to wipe them out, sending them to war with no way to rest, no way to protect themselves. All right? So, when people say herd immunity, are you willing to see all your grandparents die, your parents die? You know, in Singapore, almost every death from coronavirus is someone over 60 years old. Almost every single death. All right? Now, that is very scary. Okay? Now, who are the countries that will even talk about herd immunity? Only few countries. We in Asia just use the term, but you know, for us, this herd immunity will never suit Asia. It will never be a solution for Asia for two reasons. Number one, we Asians respect our older people. We respect old people. That's wonderful. Indonesians really respect older people. Now, sad to say, in many countries, that is no more true. In many Western countries, old people are not respected anymore. They are looked down on. You know, in our culture, we like to say we are 70 years old, we are 80 years old. In fact, sometimes in some cultures, we add a few years to be more respected. If you have gone abroad to Western countries, you never ask a person his age because they are very embarrassed to tell you how old they are. If you ask a lady her age, she'll be very angry with you because age is not something to respect, it's something to be ashamed of. It's kind of strange to Asians. Number two, we take care of our old people. We love our parents. We take care of them. When they're sick, we pay for them. We sell our things so we can pay for our parents. We don't throw them into old folks' homes. Now, in many Western countries, their parents are just put in government old folks' homes. The government takes care of your parents, not you. It's not my problem, right? I want to live my life. I want to be happy. I want to travel. I want to enjoy. Let the government take care of my parents. Now, in countries like this, the burden of the country to take care of old people is very heavy. A lot of the tax money is to take care of old people who live very long, who need a lot of medical care, and that is paid by the government. So in these countries, not many young people, because they don't produce a lot of babies, so there's a lot of old people, and the old people live very long because of good medical care, right? And they're paid by the government. Now, can you imagine if you're a government in a Western country, what do you do? It's got more and more old people living longer and longer. You don't have enough money to take care of them because there are not many young people paying taxes because these old people produce one child. Some produce no kids, right? So for countries like this, it's very tempting to talk about herd immunity. Very tempting. Because it solves their problem. Number one, in allowing people to move freely, no PS baby, everybody gets sick. Your children go to the old folks' home, visit the parents there, give the virus to the old people in the old folks' home, and they all die. Isn't that solving your problem? I'm speaking very cruelly, but politicians sometimes have to think of solutions. And there are many people who like solutions. This is a solution. It's a cruel solution. And you see in countries like Europe, many old people just dying because they didn't have strict PSBB. And it was part of a policy. Britain tried to do that. Britain. Until too many people started dying and there was protest. So they stopped. But actually that was their plan. President Trump has been suggesting this is a good thing. Because getting rid of old people who produce nothing except use up taxpayers' money, government money, right? Sweden is still having this policy of let people just move around. If they get infected, too bad. Knowing that the young people, they'll probably recover. You know, we know in coronavirus, the young people mostly don't die. As I said, in Singapore, almost everyone who has died of coronavirus, almost everyone is over 60 years old. Over 60, you're a pension, right? Okay? So, this policy can only be thought of by cruel politicians in Western countries. In Asian countries, I cannot see herd immunity even as a possible proposal by a politician. Our culture of respecting older people will not accept that. Secondly, the government doesn't really have to take care of old people because we take care of our old people. So for the government, this is not a solution. They don't need to get rid of old people. Old people's problems, medical bills, are your medical bills, not the government's medical bills, right? So I hope you see here, when people talk about herd immunity as a possible solution, it is theoretical in Asia. It is not even worth talking about. Okay? So I hope you understand that this is not a solution. Because there are people who listen to my talk and say, "What are you talking about? There's no solution." I wish I had a solution. I wish the governments had a solution. It's easy if we had a solution, right? But there is no solution until a safe and good vaccine comes. And then when we give it to everybody and all the people, on 70% of the people have antibodies to coronavirus, then at that time we will have herd immunity, not by cruel methods, but by vaccination, right? Till then, only God can help us. And that's a good thing, that we all now realize we need to look to God for a solution. And in a country like Indonesia, where your very constitution tells you that you must believe in God, and God is the solution. So when people say, "How come you don't give a solution?" I'm not God. I give you facts. I want to give you facts that you understand the situation you're in. And the situation you're in demands you look up to God, not your politicians, not your scientists, for a solution. In fact, some people say, "Well, I'm looking to the scientists to invent the vaccination." I'll talk about that in another talk. But let me tell you, there are vaccines that are being produced, good ones, like measles vaccine in Indonesia. The government spent millions for a measles vaccination program. And even with the vaccines available, with the vaccines given freely, vaccination is still facing a lot of problems. So you say vaccination is the problem? My answer is maybe not. Herd immunity is a possible solution? My answer is no. Never in Asia. Not for coronavirus. We cannot accept that. Old people must be respected in our culture. If any solution sacrifices our old people, the answer is not. It's not a solution. Right? Of course, people will say, "What about jobs? If we have PS baby for so long, there are no jobs." I don't have a solution. That's the truth. You come to these talks to listen to a solution? The answer is no. You come to these talks so that we have understanding, that we need to look to God. Then come back for the next talk. May God bless all of you with understanding that we need God. Your constitution, Pancasila, says you need to believe in God. This is the time that we all need to look up and say, "God, we need help. Please help us." May God bless you. This is the best outcome of this talk, that there is no solution, just understanding that we need God. See you soon.